Hey guys, Marsingin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to be taking a look at the final one of the new EZAs from today, which is the physical GOWASU and ZAMASU. Now, this unit is definitely very interesting because they are actually very good on both the teams for the new worldwide units, and they are on the 200% leader skill for both of them as well. So whether it be this ZAMASU team or the Goku and Vegeta team, this unit can actually be very good. Now, I do want to see them dodge if possible, but obviously, you know, if we were playing this like a proper event, this is how I would run the rotation, right? But I want to showcase the units, so I don't want to float them off, so we're going to have to do this. The one downside is their links on both teams, even with some of these other units that are, you know, the same character or similar versions, their links are a bit weird. But this unit greatly raises attack and defense on super, as well as sealing the enemy super attack, which is still useful in some events, so that's pretty good. All allies 3 key and 70% defense. So again, remember, it's all allies. It's not extreme or super. It's not realm of gods or future or anything like that. It's just all allies 3 key and 70% defense. Then all allies 1 key and attack 30% when all allies in the same turn are realm of gods. Now again, this benefits both teams, because if you're running a rotation of Blue Goku and Vegeta and then Tech Vegeta Blue, or Blue Goku and Vegeta and Physical God Goku, you have a full Realm of Gods rotation. And if you're running him on a team like this, we have a full Realm of Gods rotation. So that works very nicely on both teams as well. Even if you're running like Mai on the super team, you're running both of these guys as floating support, so it doesn't really matter, right? The only downside for the super side is you are going to have units like Trunks and Vegeta who won't activate this, but, you know, depending on how you build the team, it can easily be done so that these guys are getting that extra buff every single turn. So they have a 50% chance to dodge. They get key 5, attack 140 and defense 70 when attacking if there's an extreme class enemy, and then 70 attack 140 defense when attacking a super class enemy. They also get an additional attack and defense 70% when performing a super. So the big thing about this, we're doing the Gamma 1 and 2 red zone because I wanted to try them against a super class enemy, also because, you know, it benefits the ZAMASU team. But that means they are getting a 140 buff and a 70 buff from their passive percent on attack, right? And then of course on super they get a 50% buff. So their start of turn defense here is 100k, which is awful, but they get a ridiculously large amount from their super attack effect. So they're going up to, what is it, like it's 210%, and then the super attack effect as well. So they're going to be on what, like 350, maybe close to 400 without any other external support, and then 50% chance to dodge. Now, obviously, kind of like what we talked about with Int Mai, that's not that great when it comes to tanking like the big boss super attacks. So if we took this unit up against like First Form Cell in the red zone, you know, Metal Cooler Core, and they don't dodge like a super, for example, probably just get one shot, right? But 50% chance to dodge from the passive. Full dodge is obviously the build to go for them, giving you that extra chance to be able to dodge. And then you get, I guess you just kind of have to hope that RNG is going to be on your side, because with the level of defense that they have, they should be able to tank normals reasonably well. We should hopefully get a chance to see that in this run. The interesting thing, funnily enough as well, actually, because we're fighting the Gammas, is Gamma 1 in the next phase not only is int, so we have type advantage, but he can be sealed as well. So pretty good fight here. I feel like people underestimate the Gamma's fight. I think I've mentioned this before, but like we've taken 2 build-ups with these guys. They still took 157k with guard, and this is the first phase. I think people underestimate like how hard you can get hit in this event. But yeah, we'll do this just so that we don't have these two next to each other. Plus, I don't really trust the fraud physical ZAMASU on this rotation. Mine's only 55%. I only brought him because at some point we'll probably end up floating him, and he shares some links with GOWASU and ZAMASU, obviously being just the normal base ZAMASU on his own. But with mine especially at 55%, I absolutely do not rate that physical ZAMASU unit. Mai absolutely clears him in terms of the quality of side banner units. But I mean, funnily enough, it's kind of the same from like the previous worldwide, right? We got STR Piccolo and then Tech, Gohan and Krillin. One of those 2 units is significantly better than the other one. So I guess that's just going to be a worldwide tradition from now on then, hey? So, but yeah, Infusion ZAMASU here. When we've got type advantage, we're getting the guaranteed additional because we've got the 18 key. So if we need it, is going to be enough to finish him off here. And then we can go on to the int phase. So, I mean, I could risk putting GOWASU and ZAMASU in slot 1. The problem is, like I said, is you just wouldn't do that. Like, if you're running them on a team, you're running them to be a 3rd slot floating support unit. I'm just not floating them off during this video because I want to showcase them. So I want them to be on as many rotations as possible. But yeah, they're just not a slot 1 unit. But I mean, unless you're in a fight where rotations are locked, then you have no reason to put them in slot 1, right? Like, if we were playing the event seriously, quote unquote, we would just leave the rotation like this, probably. Yeah, I probably would, actually. I wouldn't put you there. I mean, you do still have 60% damage reduction, but do you get any extra links from you? No. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how we do the rotation like this. Let's keep the AGL one on rotation since these guys are the 2 new ones together. So we'll let him get a bit of extra build up here. So we'll do this and then grab these and then we'll see how we get on here. I mean, again, we haven't really brought... Of course, he's supered straight away. We haven't really bought any other, like, support units. So GOWASU and ZAMASU aren't going to be getting the benefit of a bunch of other support here, which is something they will benefit from on the superclass version of the team, right? Because if you're running STR Bulma as one of the support units on that team, who is, of course, a very popular option for that, then if she's on the rotation before them, that support is carrying over to them on the other rotation. Obviously they will thrive on the rotation with Vegito Blue once he comes out, because with his super he's giving 50%. Now he's only going to be giving them 50% to what they have at the start of the turn, which is not a lot, but then all their buffs from their passive will go off of that number, so at least it will be a little bit more. It won't be as hugely effective as if they did get all their defense at the start of turn, sadly, but they still will get a huge benefit from being on the rotation with him as well. So this is a unit that I definitely can see being run on both the teams, which I think is really cool. I think that's a good outcome for these guys, right? Like Mai obviously very clearly is a unit that you run on the super team or with Trunks units and stuff like that, but GOWASU and ZAMASU, despite being the ZAMASU sub EZA, definitely very, very good on both teams, which I do think is cool. So, so you have every link except for one, and then you lose Godly Power. Yeah, we'll just leave you in slot 1. Do this. Get ZAMASU floated off here. Do this. I mean, ZAMASU, the thing is, even if he shares some links with GOWASU and ZAMASU, it's not like it's a good idea to run them together, because whilst the ZAMASU, just like Mai, does give a little bit of extra support to future units, he does give most of his support to extreme units, which GOWASU and ZAMASU are obviously not. So doesn't exactly have a huge amount of benefit to them outside of the potential for some links. But the other thing to remember, I say to remember, but to definitely not underestimate, is just how much extra defense everybody is getting because of them, right? So again, like ideally we would want to do this. Look at all those links, especially big bad bosses. That's giving ZAMASU, who's only been out for 1 turn, 421k defense at the start of the turn, because they're giving 70% defense, which is a lot. So I mean, realistically, we are just kind of hurting ourselves by doing this in terms of the rest of the team. But as I've already said, like we are trying to showcase GOWASU and ZAMASU specifically. Now, we will see a good example right here. If they fumble this dodge, especially against Gamma 1, then we are going to get absolutely taken to the cleaners here, right? So we've got 653k HP. As I say, we go up to probably around 400k with only 1 super. If they get a double super, that would be great. So obviously for them, I would say you go full dodge and put all the rest in additional. They're never going on your team to do damage, so you just don't need to give them any crit. I don't see why, honestly, you would give them even a single point of crit. Just go full dodge, rest additional, because if you are going to get that second super, obviously that would be very helpful. And then ideally you just have to put yourself in the hands of RNG and hope that they don't eat supers and things like that, right? So fortunately, him supering ZAMASU here is the best case scenario, because as I say, if he supers GOWASU and ZAMASU and they don't dodge, we are guaranteed straight up dead. So now let's see what happens with these normal attacks. So yeah, not a lot of damage as we would expect. 91k, okay, and then they dodge Gamma 2, which was of course the one that would have done less damage. 91k from type disadvantage. I mean, this stage, whilst I said at the beginning, I feel like people do underestimate Gamma 1 and 2. They aren't the hardest hitting bosses in the world. But I mean, I guess what other really tough STR bosses do we have currently? But I mean, to be fair, with the stats we've seen from like the red zone bosses, I mean, even like STR Goku Black, like the base one from phase 1, he is going to be hitting them a lot harder than that, especially because obviously he's an extreme enemy, which means when they're fighting extreme enemies, they get more attack and less defense. So their defense is actually even lower when fighting against extreme class enemies. So that is something that you have to bear in mind. They're a very interesting unit, to be sure. I wouldn't say I necessarily think they're like super cracked, because like I said, you are relying on RNG. Go up against any of these tougher bosses with them. We're going to be taking all these new units into some of the tough bosses over the next couple of days. If they don't dodge even like normal attacks from, say, Metal Cooler Core, First Form Cell, especially after he's supered, we're going to see them taking some pretty significant numbers, right? But that's not to say they're not a good unit. I mean, the sheer amount of support they give, like, if you have the full Realm of Gods rotation, it can't be underestimated that they're giving 2 key, 30% attack and 70% defense. So, I mean, that is pretty good, right? We just have to be very careful around them specifically as a unit. But let's see, what extra links do we actually get from you? Cold Judgment, which is a defensive link, right? Cold Judgment at level 10 is 25% defense. So if we do the rotation like this, that means they have 125k. Yeah, so we're definitely going well above 400k after they super on this rotation. And then thanks to the defensive buffs from both the units on the team, that means AGL Zamasu has 534k defense on this turn, whilst also having 50% damage reduction. So that is definitely very, very good. So all in all, I think they're a solid unit. Just like Int Mai, I think they're good. I think they'll be useful on the teams you want to run them on. But you do have to be careful because they can obviously be a defensive liability if their dodge doesn't go off. And they do only have 50%, whereas Mai obviously has 70. And even in the showcase I did for her, we saw her not dodge a couple of times. So that is something you will, of course, have to be wary of. 3.5 million. Nothing crazy on the attack, but that's what we expect. They're not going to kill him, are they? No, even with a crit. But dodge, though? Oh, see, this is what I mean. Is this how we're going to end the video right here? Yeah, there you go, 847k. So, unfortunately, that is exactly what I was talking about. Now, the unit is pretty good, but that can happen. So I'm going to leave it in because it's a realistic showing of what happens when you run the unit sometimes. But there you go, GOWASU and ZAMASU. I don't like people to think I leave those kind of things in, like if the run ends that way to try and make the unit look bad. But I mean, that's how the run went, right? So it's unfortunate that that can happen. That doesn't mean I think the unit is terrible, unrunnable, anything like that. But you're just going to have to be aware that, especially with support units, there often are these instances where if you're not dodging, which is their main defensive ability, then you're dying to these super attacks, and it just is what it is. So let me know what you guys think of them down below in the comment section. Have you tried them out in any events? What did you think of them? Just let me know all of that down below. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.